we mature as cancer coaches and master coaches, it's nice to keep in mind where we're going and what we're doing, and how our cancer business has changed from, like me being cancer, like BRCA shirts, to being a cancer coach because of beatcancer.org, and now morphing into a cancer portal.
Yeah.
And I think as we migrate and change based on how we have developed ourselves and where we want to go, it's all part of a maturing process. And I also want to be doing more tracking so that I can do statistics on that are separately tracked privately, so that we and do some surveys from so that as I'm coaching, we're getting effective surveys on how we've supported the cancer client and how they have felt about the teaching and education they've received. Because I think these are important things for not only beatcancer.org, because we're graduates of your program, but also for our businesses standalone, and for the portal, growth of the portal. But I really think as we go, it's something maybe you might want to take a look at, Carl, is I'm having a link on our site, to our site.
Yeah, absolutely.
That comes through.
Yeah.
Because as you grow and we support each other in our businesses, people can grow.
It's all about the mission. It's all about helping people.
Yeah, and there's nothing more enriching as a cancer coach or a cancer patient in knowing that we're giving back, and it feels so good to help others, and it gives us a reason to survive and thrive, and it also affirms that, especially as we start getting calls from clients, and they give us that feedback that we've made a difference for them. And there's nothing more beautiful than that, than knowing that. And even if they did not have a successful surgeries and they're not doing well, I know several people that have really felt touched by our professional approach in helping them get through those stages of grief, and the families too, because there is so little is done for supporting the spouse and the families, and there's so much that still needs to be done in everything we do. So, and now you've heard my blurb today.
All right, let me start the call. Am I echoing on your side?
Yeah, it seems like it's echoing between you and Catherine, maybe?
All right. See if I'm going to mute Catherine. Hey, that's what it was. Okay. Okay, so tonight is Thursday night. It's November 30th, and welcome to tonight's Beat Cancer Answer Call on the Grown Folks Talking Network. And we're going to have a great topic tonight that Zach is going to lead, and I'm hoping that I get to learn a lot about all this stuff because it's something that I need to know about, and I'll let him introduce it. But, okay, so house cleaning. None of this is medical advice. Please consult your physician. We have to say that. Keeps us safe. But we do know a whole lot more about healing than the average Joe and even the average doctor, because the medical system treats the symptoms typically, even in the cancer world. Also, just house cleaning. If there's any noise in your background or we're having any troubles like we had with Catherine's mic being open and my mic echoing through hers, I will mute you. It's very, very easy to unmute yourself if you have a question. If you're on the phone, just hit *6. That mutes you and unmutes you. So it's very, very simple. If you're on the computer or on the app on your phone, there's a little microphone icon. For the computer, it's down in the lower left. It looks like a little microphone, and it says mute right under it. If it's blue, it's hot, and we can hear you, and we can hear people washing the dishes in the background and everything else. And if it's got a little red stripe through it, that means you're muted. And if I mute you and you hear that you've been muted, it's not that I don't like you, it's just that it's interrupting the call, and you can feel free to unmute yourself when you want to ask questions. And that's it, and I'm going to open this up to Zach. He came up with today's topic, and I think it's a doozy. So with that, Zach.
Sure, yeah. So it's a very overarching umbrella term of a topic, but I really wanted to talk about electricity. And electricity in relation to our bodies and our health. Because for those that are unfamiliar, our bodies are electrical. Our physical forms are electrical beings. And there's electricity running through us at all times. That's why I can take this phone and interact with it via touch, because the electricity is conducting through my finger and then interacting with the phone in different in different capacities. So with all the electrical devices and systems and electrical movements in artificial ways that we have in this modern world, it's really essential to bear that in mind and monitor what kind of impact the artificial electricity means of transportation might have on our health. And that's in all sorts of ways, right? There's the obvious ones of what kind of electrical fields are we being subjected to in the form of potentially cell phone tower signals, Wi-Fi signals in our homes, things that we might not even think of, like large appliances in our homes. Well, as they're using electricity, yeah, it's coursing through those appliances, but it's also pulsing and radiating outwards. And it's possible that as you're even standing near certain appliances, as they're in use and electricity is flowing through them, that your body and your cells might be being affected by those electrical signals in not such a good way. There's all sorts of different other realms where electricity can play a part in our health, such as light, because lighting is electricity, and different lights put out different electrical signals that'll have different effects on our health. And ultimately, the more natural we can get, and then the more natural a frequency is, the more or less harmful it's likely to be. And that's why I always advocate for, in regards to light bulbs, opting for the more original halogen-style bulbs versus LEDs or compact fluorescent bulbs. The compact fluorescent and the LED bulbs put out an electrical pulse, an electrical signal that not only disturbs your eyes, but is also known to disrupt your brain waves and brain cycles as well. And the list goes on and things that we can talk about. We can talk about the studies that have been done on people who live near power plants and high tension wires. If your house is right under a significant bit of electricity just pulsing over your house all the time, that's been shown to have a lot of detrimental effects on people themselves, or especially pregnant women and then their babies. There's a lot of routes that we can go on, but I'll let some other coaches or anyone with an area of interest or knowledge in this area maybe chime in, and if anyone has any input.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Oh, she's muted.
There we go. That's okay.
Got it.
I just wanted to note that I have a 15-year-old nephew that had severe testicular cancer. And I know 4 other teenagers with the same issue. And my question to you is, you know what? Young boys today carry their phones in their front pockets.
Yep.
And maybe there's something we need to do about protecting that, making sure they don't that they actually have a leather case so that there's a little more protection, and maybe in their back pocket, although I know you don't want your phone stolen, or maybe put it on a belt and suspend it from your belt. I don't know. There's got to be a way, because I think in your pocket, you're awfully close to that department down there. And is that a potential cause of some of this? Because we're seeing a huge increase in testicular cancer in younger And 15, 14 and 15.
Absolutely. And there is Faraday cage pouches. Of course, they won't get any Wi-Fi into the device, but when they pull it out of the Faraday pouch, which fits it just like a little phone cover, then they can get all their messages and everything. So it's actually it's almost like it's going into airplane mode when it goes in their pocket. And I just saw a thing recently that iPhones do not, which is what I used, do not pass the regulations for the amount of radiation that they emit. They emit a very, very high amount of radiation, and even in some countries, they're starting to say iPhones aren't allowed. But I never keep it in my pocket. Typically, I carry the phone around and I put it down on a table, and if I am out with it, it's sitting in the console of my truck, or if I'm actually taking it with me into the store or whatever, I put it in my back pocket. Typically, I don't have a Faraday cage for it, but it's rarely on my person.
It's definitely one of those areas where is there a perfect solution to
is this an education point, like for fanny packs or whatever?
Let's bring it back.
I honestly, this is something. This is an education point for as our children are younger and younger using, little computers. I mean, in kindergarten now, they're bringing their computers to school, and some of them mom and dad are giving them phones so they can call them in an emergency and things like this. So we're already seeing younger and younger children using phones, and is there an education point for where we need to be looking at them carrying their phones and consciously, and I know young kids think, oh, I'm not going to get cancer, but it's an education point that we're starting to see a rise. And should we not be doing and saying something, saying, guys, get a fanny pack, put it around your waist, like and the leather, you don't have it just one side open. They need something that properly closes.
Yeah, certainly.
Faraday pouches for phones, but they also have Faraday pouches for iPads and such.
Yeah.
And for computers, and they also have Faraday backpacks, which is something kids do use a lot in school. They can put it into this backpack that everything in there is protecting you.
So I would like to see we so rarely stop and take the time to do prevention and teaching and awareness.
Yeah.
And it's I'm sorry, Maya.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry for interrupting. Females also, they do carry their cell phones on their breast, in their bra, especially when they're working out. That's another one. That it's also linked a lot to getting a breast cancer, and similar to young girls, because younger and younger age have been developing cancer in their breast. So it's not only males, there are females also.
Yeah, so they shouldn't be carrying it next to their skin.
Yep, and they're even showing heat mapping.
Especially right into their bra. But even having, even in a front pocket, that's your breast. And I really think they need to because there are tons of contributing factors, definitely, to breast cancer. But when we're looking at them putting their phone in that front pocket, I get concerned too, Maya.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's not like this is new information either. If we really get serious about it, it's been known that there's at least potential for harmful effects due to the radiation, really from many generations of phones ago. And in those terms and conditions and little pamphlet information books that you get with each purchase that, to be honest, nobody looks at, it does recommend very often, and has for years, do not keep this on your person. It says that in a lot of the phone's pamphlets. But what are you going to do, realistically? I try to keep it on my person as little as possible, just like Carl. I will put it down somewhere and put it on the table or put it over there. But if I'm in transport, then there's only so much I can do, and you just try to mitigate it. But it's not a new development, even though the news might say that, breaking news. that don't keep it in your pocket, but they've made it known that it's potentially dangerous, and that's their due diligence in a way, and them protecting themselves from liability from when it ultimately down the line people do have those cumulative issues.
And they've shown that I've seen a bunch of studies where they show brain scans or heat mapping of people when they're using their phone and they're holding it up to their ear, and how hot the brain gets from the radiating in from that side. But now what they're talking about a lot is especially these new earbuds, like the iPhone earbuds.
Yeah.
They're over the limit too in their radiation, and these people have these earbuds in constantly.
No, absolutely.
They're so much better with like what Maya has with the wires.
Yeah. Absolutely. I never talk on my phone to my head, like ever. You would have to.
I use speakerphone all the time.
Speakerphone all the time.
It's non-blank
conversation for me to like put it to my phone. Like this has to be life or death, and I'm in some loud place, and I need to absolutely hear you for it to go to my head.
There's only a few times like where people aren't hearing me correctly through the microphone, that I have to actually pick up the phone and use it.
And those Bluetooth headphones, I mean, come on, guys, let's use common sense about it, right? Those frequencies going somewhere, and they're going directly inside your head. You're putting the electrical device and receiving and sending communication from inside your brain, inside your head. Like, there's, on a logical, common sense standpoint, like, there's no way for that to be good.
Right.
But at least we can make people cognizant of this, and we should be. And this is a nice opportunity for us to go in and talk to high schools, and introduce breast cancer and bowel cancer and cancer awareness, and look at issues.
Absolutely. Because the younger you instill good values and good ways of thinking about these things and consciousness, the ultimately the safer someone is going to be. But it unfortunately, without an entire restructure of the way that everyone's looking at something, it might be hit with a lot of brushing off sometimes. But
well, and the thing is that when I came to my phone, I mean, I just started, okay, how do I use it? I mean, I didn't read anything prior to that. I just, okay, how do I set it in? And so if there's any warning there, I wouldn't have read it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But common sense told me not to, and I know enough to keep it away. But I mean, it's up to the parents to properly teach how to manage that phone. And so this messaging needs to get down to the parent level. And this is an education point that we need to address, I honestly believe, for computers. And how many kids sit with computers right on their lap?
Yeah.
And laptops on their lap. Well, it says laptop, but, like your skin's absorbing that. And so I am concerned that we don't take the time to say, think about what you're doing. And it's an education point across the board in public awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the note of the headphones, just because I thought of it before we get too far off that, even though the wired headphones are a massive improvement versus the wireless, well, you are still providing a path for electrical signals and electrical energy to go from that device into your head. And so there's actually been a new product, or somewhat new to me at least, that's out there, and different brands make it. They're called air tubes, where it looks like a wired headphone, just like Maya has, but the speaker is actually like down here in the wire, and then it's just like a hollow tube that goes to your ear. So there's actually no electronics anywhere from like here to here. And the electronic speaker and then speaker wire is only down here. And it just further removes the electrical energy away from your head. I've never used them, but they get some good reviews, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I've seen those too.
Yeah, it was really
I
cool.
put into the chat a link to a Faraday pouch for iPhones. We don't have any affiliation with this. I just quickly looked it up because I know that there's lots of these companies. But that's definitely something you can look at. And speaking of which, another habit we have is we sleep with our phones. We sleep with them in our bedrooms, on our nightstands. And what I do is, I'm kind of funny with my phone. I don't have any bells or whistles that ever go off because I can't be. I feel like it annoys me all day long. So I don't need something grabbing my attention all the time. Every time a text or whatever comes through, when I'm ready to look at my phone and check my stuff, that's what I do. But the other thing I do is, besides having it set for do not disturb after a certain hour, between a certain hour at night and a certain hour in the morning, I also turn it on airplane mode at night before I go to sleep.
Yep.
Right? I'm done using it, it goes on airplane mode. And then
Absolutely.
It's just simply an alarm clock.
And that's important, Carl, because you know what? You hear it dinging during the night, and it interrupts your sleep.
Yeah, even the day, I just can't. Like I had an iWatch or whatever, one of those things, and it lasted a week for me. I couldn't stand it. They're always vibrating and notifying me. I was like, oh, this thing is terrible. Who would ever want this? And I see people with them on, and they're constantly responding to this thing. I'm like a Pavlov's dog. It's just my attention span's not all that great anyway. So
Yeah. And the thing is how much do we need to respond at night anyway? So they should be off.
Even during the day, it's just a good practice to say.
Tracking your you have respiratory issues or something. You're tracking your respiratory rate or the reason for it. A big thing is my family are in Holland, and so they're up at midnight at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I mean, if I've got phones on, it's ding, ding, ding as they email each other, and so I mean, I couldn't have it on. I'd have to be on airplane mode or in a totally different room, because oh my God, and like these guys get going, and I would get no sleep because you want to respond. And I'm not, no. So this is where I think steps comes in here when it comes to sleep, when it comes to how close you're holding your electrical equipment to your body, and an education point, especially when we look at our children younger and younger utilizing equipment. And so we need to, as parents, somehow we need to be getting across to the parent to do this education.
Yeah.
Because I don't see that is being done at this point, at least not that I hear.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't. I mean, the Faraday cages, pouches have been around for years. They're getting better and better, and still it's not a thing that's widely known. I gotta just do an announcement real quick. Some new people came on, and if there's background noise, I'm going to mute your phone or your head or your feed. Very, very easy to unmute yourself if you have a question. Just hit *6 if you're on the phone, and *6 again. That mutes you and unmutes you. If you're muted, it just means we could hear background noise, and I had to mute you. I muted somebody, and then they hung up, so I don't want people hanging up because I muted them. You're perfectly able to join the conversation at any time that you want. You just have to unmute yourself. That's all.
If you're on phone, *6.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So we have everybody muted.
Everybody's muted except for the four of us. Yep. Yeah. So that's a little bit about iPhones, but I've heard a lot. I mean, for years about high tension wires. I remember when I first got married, and we were looking at houses to buy. And, of course, the ones under high tension wires were beautiful houses that were less expensive than they should have been for our area. But guess why, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's at all levels, right? All things are, microcosms of the macrocosms. And so while the high tension wires are one area to avoid, anywhere where there's just a lot of the electricity passing through does pose a risk. And so it's been alleged, or it's also been studied, that smart meters and the electricity meters on the houses themselves pulse with very, very harmful frequencies themselves. And that's why, if you're gonna ideally, if you have a more conventional, older style electrical meter on your house, and resist any pushing of the electrical companies to install a smarter one on your house.
Yep, they didn't even ask me; they just put it on.
Yeah, and so it's not always feasible. But there are a couple things that you could do. There's some pieces of technology that allege to stop the harmful frequencies from reaching you or pulsing out. There's also, if you can structure it to, making sure that your bedroom at the very least is on the opposite side of the house from those meters. That might require some more structural changes in the house, but it's bad during the day, but you really don't want it to be affecting your sleep as well, and where you'd be spending a lot of time. It's another thing to be mindful of.
Yeah, Maya has a question.
I just want to bring one point. I was taking a couple of years ago a walk in a forest preserve, and then suddenly I started feeling like my heartbeat was just going out of my chest, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is it? And I looked at it, and I was under those very heavy, electrical, a poles, those heavy ones. I was crossing under them, and I felt this such a huge vibration or something like that, and I just started feeling heartbeat, doom doom doom, out of nowhere. I was just enjoying my walk, and as soon as I crossed, and I just ran through that, because I looked at it, I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then when I looked it up, I realized I was under, so I just walked faster, went on the other side, past, and then it just started coming down. Just a simple, I didn't even realize that they could cause such a strong effect. And imagining when people live close by, it's such a strong effect. It's we don't realize, we don't pay attention. But when I experienced that, it just surprised me, oh my gosh, this is what it was.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people out there that are experiencing effects from not just the wires, but especially if you're in cities or really anywhere, right? Because in your schools, you have all your Wi-Fis, and in apartment buildings, all the signals, and they're putting the cell phone reception towers and transmitters everywhere on apartment buildings and such. A lot more people are being affected by these types of things than comprehend why they are feeling unwell.
Yep. And 5G is a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't resist it to the point, because pretty soon you're not going to be able to get a phone that doesn't have 5G.
Yeah.
And 5G is harmful, but going up the spectrum, I'm not sure if it's 6G, but it might be a level or two above that, is actually military-grade weapons that they use. They use these weapons that emit let's just say 8G, and it causes harm to people as a weapon. So that's what it is. We're all being bombarded with a low-grade military weapon.
Yeah.
There's certain places in the world that have the least amount of 5G coming from or even satellite transmission is the Yucatan of Mexico. That's one of the places that's very, very clean.
And speaking of those 5Gs or cell phones, the getting signals or EMF into the brain, it's a one part, but interacting with sleep cycles in so many people, especially young teenagers, because they spend such a long time being on the phone until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, or sometimes until morning. That's such a big, also another part to look into that, how much they interact with their sleep cycle, their hormones, endocrine disruptors, changes so much in the system. That's another part also to look into that. that people don't take it seriously.
And you probably know a lot about this because I've heard you talk a little bit about it, but the blue light after certain hours.
Yeah, or really at any point. It's never good, but it's more impactful when you're closer to sleep and in the dark, because that's when your body is most expecting or really not expecting any light at all. So that's when bombarding it with the artificial light at that point it is most harmful.
Now, speaking of appliances that emit radiation, Zach wrote microwaves, and Susan Silberstein has said it for many years since early on. Microwaves are only good for boat anchors. At that time they were heavy enough to be a boat anchor. Now they're not so heavy. We got Avadini that has a question. So go ahead. You can unmute yourself, or I'll unmute you. Oh, I just muted you again. Sorry. There you go. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. How are we today?
Hi.
Good. Thank you.
Very well.
So what I had realized is even the parents today, back in the late 80s, early 90s, when Cellular One came out with those big weapons that were cell phones back then, they were making it very public about the radiation and the dangers of radiation. But if we think about it, I'm a grandparent, so the grandparents are more aware of the impact of radiation close to the body than the parents of the children today, because the parents of the children today were children back then when they talked about it more and more and more. But I ran a summer program, and I had 32 summer youth workers, and I gave them the exercise of turning off their phones before they went to sleep, because I knew they would sleep better. When your phone is on subconsciously, you're listening for it. So you're not resting. As Catherine O'Maya said, you're not resting. Your body is not going through that complete process it's supposed to go through, when you're sleeping. And I looked at the pack, Carl. I looked at that, and I was thinking that before you put it up, that if there was some type of carrier, I think there is a carrier also that's lead-based. It's like a small layer of lead that is supposed to protect you from the radiation, but I don't think so much for this. You're smiling, Carl. Did you know about that?
You're muted, Carl.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to protect you. So in my car, one of the reasons I did not want a modern car is because of all the technology that's in it. And it's in all of them, even the older ones, just on a certain level. But I have, what is it, Amazonite? I have the Amazonite stone in my car, which is supposed to limit the amount of radiation that will be in the vehicle or even around you. You could actually wear it as well. But we're focused around it. But here's a horrible scene. In New York City, when you look up at these apartment buildings, I think as Frank said, when you look up the roofs of these apartment buildings in low-income neighborhoods, have anywhere from 3 to 15 towers on the roof. And they get paid, the landlords get paid $25,000 a month per unit. And I think about somewhere in the lease, somewhere in the lease, when you're renting, it says that the landlord is supposed to provide you with a safe living environment. Those tenants can literally sue those landlords for endangering their health. There's literally anywhere from 3 to 15. It makes me so sick when I see it. But Thank you for this information. And yeah, absolutely. Going into the schools, sharing it as much as we can. Like, oh, what are you wearing? What do you mean? Because I say that to people. I see women all the time with the phone up in their breasts. And I'm like, as hard as we try to have the best formation up there, why do you have this rectangular thing stuck in there? And why are you attracting radiation? And men usually wear it on their waist, very close to the prostate. So I just, I give them a little bug. I have no problem. They say when you say something, see something. When you see something, say something. That's what I do. I don't care who you are. I'm going to say it if you don't like it, oh well. But I know that I believe I am sharing something good with you. So thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And there absolutely has been lawsuits of that nature regarding apartments, and they make headlines every so often, but the majority of people, they might not necessarily even believe the information that's in front of them, or they just don't care. A lot of, or they don't know,
Or they're disenfranchised, right?
Yeah.
They don't feel like they could do anything about it.
Yeah, a lot of people are, if they're thinking about, all right, how am I working to pay the rent and where's my food coming from, they're not necessarily thinking, okay, I have to worry about cell phone towers. There's a lot of structures in this world that have people focused on immediate survival things rather than things that might be affecting them more long term.
Yeah, hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, certainly. But
I have a question. Have you heard about like wrapping in aluminum foil that's like a decreases AMF? Is there? I mean, I read somewhere, but I don't know how true is that.
I imagine it's possible.
It's like a Faraday cage. You'd have to have a little tester to see how that works, or at least see a YouTube proving it somehow.
Yeah, that's something that would be an interesting test. They have meters that can measure electromagnetic frequency of the ambient area, so that would be something that is testable. I imagine, like Carl said, there's probably someone who tested it on YouTube, but then that brings into question, how much do we trust that?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen a lot of those videos where they have, the device reading the EMF, and they're not even close to these towers, like a football field away, and it's still over the healthy limit.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and those meters aren't very expensive either. Anyone can buy them on Amazon, an EMF meter, and I always advocate for people doing so because as a realist and a skeptic, anyone can fake a video in one direction or the other, so why should we even take anyone's word for it? Let's see, I'm going to look on Amazon right now. I can get an EMF detector for $40-50. I mean, or more. There's obviously ranges of them. But yeah, I encourage people to buy an EMF detector, an EMF meter, and that just stands for electromagnetic frequency, and test various areas of your house and see what you might be being subjected to throughout your day-to-day.
Well, I got a question. We'll get into the practical application. Everything in the house is connected to the Wi-Fi. Soon, refrigerators will be connected to everything, the Internet of Things. But certainly the TV, your phones, your computers, everything. So how do we structure our house in such a way that we're utilizing this less? Do we just hardwire everything? Do we buy routers and splitters and all that stuff and have to hardwire everything? I mean, what's a good suggestion, do you think?
Yeah, and so this is where each individual person is going to have to decide what they want to do. Because as we move more and more into the modern world and more things that are available are only in the direction of these smart appliances, it requires a lot of energy and whatnot to figure out how to resist it. Yeah. Ultimately, there's really no reason to have all these smart devices. They're certainly convenient, but you're always paying for convenience with something, whether it's your privacy, whether it's your safety, whether it's your health, and a lot of times it's a combination of the above. So, I mean, opt for the not smart devices where possible. Like I have like an air cleaning device in all of my rooms, and it's just an air filter, and it's just a standard model. I could have opted for the smart model of that. That would be on Wi-Fi, and I could check it with my phone, the filter status, and this and that. But I didn't need that. And that's one less device on the network. So the devices that you really don't need to be smart, just don't get them smart. Regarding what's up?
I'm on a virtual network, so it's all less wiring, but I don't know what the implication is of using a virtual network over using like having all the cords and.
VPN is good for privacy. You can still access the VPN through Wi-Fi if that's how you have it set up. You can't even get internet subscription without getting their router, which is a Wi-Fi router. It's just plugged in, and then it just comes standard. And not only that, when I turn on my computer and search for Wi-Fi, I see my Wi-Fi, but I see four of my, and I live in a suburbia, so we live on half-acre, three-quarter-acre lots, and I still see 5 or 6 Wi-Fis that are identified on that I could hook into if I had the passwords.
Yep. Right? And so that really brings up a good point. Like, you got to do what you can and not drive yourself crazy over these things. It's easy to freak out and say, "Oh my God, I'm being affected. This, that, whatever." Take one step at a time and do what you can. Because you can shut off your Wi-Fi. You can have no internet at all. But if you live within a radius of someone else's network, well, there you are, right back to square one. Obviously, the closer in proximity you are to a signal, the more it's going to be impactful. So you could just control the controllables, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and in regards to the devices that have internet themselves, sorry, Maya, I'll just finish.
That's okay. Go ahead.
In regards to the devices that definitely have internet themselves, such as the computers and even your phones, a wired connection is going to be a little safer, right? You could run an Ethernet cable to your computer, and you could actually even run a wired internet connection to your iPhone through different adapters and such. It's less practical now, less convenient, but it is something that's possible, and some people do.
Yeah, even with your hardwire connection, it's still constantly emitting a signal looking for a Wi-Fi. So every second or so many times a second, it's sending out a ping looking for it. So I'm not even sure how to turn that off, but certainly just having the wired and getting it, you'd have to be a little technical, but you'd have to get a router that does not have Wi-Fi in it, and you have to know how to set that up for sure.
Yeah, on the back end of things, you can if you could log into your router, you could probably shut off the certain bands of the Wi-Fi or all of them. But what was Maya going to say before we get off topic?
There's also some plants you can keep in your rooms or bedrooms that helps also with reduction EMF. They're like an aloe, cactus, or snake plants, I know. So those are the things that are very beneficial to keep, having like a couple of them and having one on your nightstand by your bed. It would be more beneficial instead of having your cell phone by your on your nightstand. That's another way of like adding a little things there that gives you a comfort that there's something is preventing, because when your mind constantly thinking like, oh, AMF, you put your body into the stressful mode. So you gotta come out of that stress to be able to come down and relax. So.
Yeah, and that's where we could break into certain topics that might make us lose some less open-minded people, but let's go there, right? So let's talk about crystals. Evadine brought up Amazonite that she keeps in her vehicles. I use shungite. So I have shungite near my Wi-Fi router, near my bed. I have a couple pyramids. And let's go, a little scientific, right? Crystals are substances that are known to interact with electricity and electrical frequencies. All of the technology that we use in my modern world is crystals. There's quartz crystals that make up the memory chips in our phones and computers and stuff, these LCD screens are liquid crystal displays. So modern science and modern technology demonstrates that crystals can take frequencies, interact with them, alter them, and then output them in a different manner. So there's science and technology is involving crystals already. So why would a crystal in its raw form not potentially be able to interact with potentially harmful frequencies and maybe transmute them, maybe change them, maybe alter them into a way that's beneficial for us or protective for us? I'm not saying I've ever studied it. I'm saying other people allege to have, and other people allege that there has been, benefits to certain crystals like shungite in regards to electromagnetic frequencies around us. So perhaps. But even on the other side, let's say it's complete nonsense. Well, if I say I put that there and it's going to protect me, well, now my body's less stressed about it, and I'm going to be a little healthier. So we can, whether it's real, whether it's not real, in either direction, whatever stance you want to take on that, you can help yourself out with matters like that.
Yeah, Susan's got a question. Go ahead, Susan. And then we'll have a Vodney next.
I do not have a question. I have a story.
Okay, good.
Several years ago, I think my son was 17 years old, and he had a collapsed lung. He was in the hospital. They kept, putting air in his lungs, and it kept collapsing. And finally, I guess maybe it was the third or fourth night, the surgeon came in and he said, "Look, we just put air in the lungs, and if it collapses tomorrow morning, we're taking him into surgery." So friends of mine came into the room. I mean, this was back in the day, obviously. We lit candles, and we had crystals in the room, and we laid the crystals on his lung. I have to tell you, the surgeon came up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was obviously sleeping in the room. He said, "In my entire medical practice, I have never seen anything like this. We were prepared to take him into surgery. Now we're prepared to send him home." Very
amazing.
Said for crystals, as well as essential oils.
Yeah, they work.
Okay, we have time to get a Vodney back on before we're going to close out the call. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. That's a great story.
I agree. That was perfect. And I met a lady yesterday. She says she puts thyme oil at the bottom of her feet when she's congested, and it clears her up. But I put in the chat some different ideas for blocking the radiation in the home. They said there's a paint that's resistant. What is it? EMF. It's a paint. They have curtains. Maya, I looked up the aluminum foil, and yes, it says it works as well. So I'll put those things in the chat. You're right, Frank. If we freak out over everything, we'll be freaked out, and then it won't be even worth doing anything else. You just want to protect yourself as much as you can and inform others around you as much as you can, but continue living your best life.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Peace of mind is everything.
Yeah, playing a music, like you can download the music without internet and run it all night long, like 11.1 gigahertz or for like 528, whatever. Just having this music playing, because that would create vibration, like a frequency of music. That soothes the soul. I found myself so much in such a peaceful sleep when I ran that music through the night, like just playing in the background very quietly. It's just so calming. You wake up in the morning, you kind of feel refreshed, because if you know the studies about water and the vibration of the music, how the water changes the images and the waves in the water and all of those things. Thinking of our body 75% of water, how much could it do to our body? So it's like a quantum physics thing, that we don't go so deep in it, But all of those little things do help us to keep the balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many directions that we can go in and so many things we could talk about. We could talk about the studies they've done with, water that's been subjected to one frequency and they water the plants and the plants die versus water that's been with other frequencies and they thrive, and the other one that hasn't been treated and they're neutral. We could talk about, the different crystals for different effects. We could talk about tensor technology and tensor rings. We could talk about clothing and the effect of natural versus synthetic fabrics on the electrical field of your body. Everything is a matter of electricity. There's been a lot of great minds and great scientists over the years, such as Tesla, who have really dove into the electrical nature of our world, and that really relates to everything, absolutely everything that's here, that we see, that we hear, that exists, that is physical form, is the result of something vibrating to a certain frequency and a certain bit of electricity. So it's absolutely essential to bear mind to what kind of frequencies we have around us.
Right.
And I can see as a Reiki master, because I receive energy, and I give off energy. And it would make sense, Maya, what you're saying about walking under those lines, that yes, your body picks up that and feels that energy change. Because we are always exchanging energy with our environment. And it's something you have to actually learn to do, to take in and to give back, pull out that energy, good and bad. And it's really nice when we can take the time to be conscious of the fact of how energy affects our body across the board. So whether it comes from our phones, the internet, our televisions, the equipment in our home, or if we're just going for a walk, Maya, as you say, with those electrical wires and antennas and things, let's be cognizant of the environment we're in. And let's talk to people. When we're out in public and we're doing our public speaking on cancer awareness, I think we need to be talking about this, especially for parents that have children and how they're managing their phones and computers and they're positioning them. Because I really know we're seeing increases of cancer for younger and younger and younger people. And I would like to see why. Yes, it's diet. Yes, it's exercise. Yes, it's chemicals in our environment and genetics. But how can we influence those changes in as you say, the electrical impulses and the EMF that we are exposed to? And yes, so I think being cognizant of the fact that it's there and starting to do teaching around it. And also, Mia, as you said, maybe getting those, listening to music and not making sure our phones are in the room, so that we're getting good, fitful sleeps. There are things that we can do that are very health conscious related. This is what we need to be focusing on, is being health and wellness and how we can best promote for ourselves and for those around us in our family and in our communities.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to close tonight. Hopefully all the coaches that are here will join us on the next call in 15 minutes on Zoom. Zach and I have been doing a ton of stuff behind the scenes, so we're hoping to see you there on the coaches only call. And thank you everybody for joining us tonight, and we will see you all next week.
And if you have a topic you would like to explore, give us a shout, and we'll look into it and we'll talk about it.
Yep, contact.
Oh yes, I have a topic.
When is the call?
What's
Yes.
When is the Zoom call now?
What?
Is the Zoom call now?
It's in 15 minutes.
15 minutes from now.
What is the topic for next week that somebody would like?
Craig, yeah.
Yes, I want to talk about the toxins in the toothpaste and the roasting and process of coffee can cause cancer.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll put that in. And any topics you want, just send it to support@beatcancer.org. And remember, the next call is on Zoom. If you did not get an email from me, please contact me right now at support@beatcancer.org, and I will get you the proper information.
And that is Cancer Coaches only.
Yep, Cancer Coaches only. All right, thank you, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Carl, I'm telling you that I didn't get the email, so.
Okay, I'll help you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.